Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5 p.m. and we would like to begin our Committee of Adjustment meeting. For everyone's information, we will deal with each application according to the order of the agenda. Extra copies of the agenda are available on the back table. Anyone present who wishes to speak in support or against an application, as well as anyone with questions or concerns, will have an opportunity to speak. The committee will make their decision following each application. If there is anyone present who is not an applicant or agent but is interested in the decision of the committee, you may fill out one of the forms attached to the clipboard on the back table and file it with our Secretary-Treasurer, Sherry Mott. Please list the file number and your full name and mailing address. Copies of the decisions are automatically sent to the applicant and the agent within 15 days of the meeting. In order to be kept advised of a possible appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal, you must request that you be sent a copy of the committee's decision on the application. The decisions are final and there are no appeals 20 days after the committee's decision. May I please remind everyone that we are now being recorded and to turn off your microphones as appropriate. And the first order of business is to determine if any of the members have any disclosure of interest when considering any of the applications that we will be dealing with today. Are there any disclosures of interest? Okay, I see none. And have all the members received the minutes of the previous meeting? Okay, does anyone have any amendments to the previous minutes? Okay, I actually have one, and it's under other business. The committee presented a motion that the planning staff prepare a memo to council to adjust, and it should read maximum height for accessory structures to the zoning bylaw in the RR zone. And I have a motion here that be it resolved that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held Wednesday, June 19th, 2019 be adopted as amended. Do I have a mover? Adam. And seconder? All in favor? Carried. Our first application is for a severance, and the file number is BNPL 2019177. The applicant is Ambrosia Products, Inc., care of Daniel Provost. Is the applicant or agent present?
Good evening, Madam Chairman. My name is Klein. I'm the agent. My client, Mr. Fiegel, is likewise here.
Okay. The planner can give us a report, please.
It's an application for severance as a surplus farm dwelling. The subject lands are 5.5 acres on 6th Concession Road. The subject lands currently contain a dwelling, several accessory structures, and fenced pastures. When planning staff visited the site, there was a small flock of sheep present in one of the pastures. The accessory structures would require a planning application to recognize deficiencies if the application was approved. The intention of a surplus dwelling severance is to allow farmers to deem dwelling surplus to their operation. This application includes much more than is necessary for just the residents. The application is not consistent with the provincial policy statement as it is not kept to a minimum size for residential use and for appropriate services. Planning staff do not consider the subject application to be consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement and does not conform to the official plan. Staff do not support this application and recommend that it be refused.
Does the committee have any questions for the planner? Okay, I have a couple questions. And the first one is, I see it's approximately 5 acres that they're asking for. If they were asking for a severance for a farm rather than a surplus dwelling, would the process be any different? Because I see that 5 acres could possibly be a viable farm, depending on what you're doing with the property.
Right. So in this case, it is possible that someone could have come in with a farm split application. A farm split, though, does require proof that both the retained and the severed parcel are viable farming operations in their own right. So we would need to see some evidence that 5.5 acres was a viable farm in its own right.
Okay. And does that mean then you're suggesting it has to be currently viable in its own right, or it could be an intended use that could be viable? Like, if I was splitting it and I wanted to do a winery.
So there are some high yield, low land use properties that could be viable at 5.5 acres. So it could be an intended land use, something like with a business plan, some sort of demonstration of that change and use on that 5.5 acres to be a viable farm at that size.
Okay. So it's something that could be considered. Okay. And my next question is, with regards to the accessory buildings on the site, if it was identified as a farm as opposed to a surplus dwelling, would you still require the
So if it was recognized as a farm, it is over 2 hectares. So over 2 hectares, the size limitation for accessory buildings isn't present in the zoning bylaw. It's just for those properties under 2 hectares. So I don't believe there would be a variance required, but I would have to double check the specifics.
Thank you. Any other questions for the planner? No? Okay. Would the agent like to present? Oh, sorry.
A question, if I might, Madam Chair. To staff, are there other examples within the last period of time where severances have been granted that are larger than what's being asked here today, or same size?
Through the chair, I don't know of any examples of surplus farm dwelling severances of this size in the time that I've been here, so about 4 years. We've had a farm split that's maybe around 7 acres because it had a large greenhouse on it, but as far as a surplus, no, I can't think of anything.
Madam Chairman, the planning report has identified the deficiencies insofar as the particular application is concerned. I will be addressing some of the finer points, in my view, of the application. Mr. Provo will come on and discuss with him his particular farming operation. Insofar as the structures are concerned, there's only one structure that is really a structure as defined. The rest of them are all 3-sided shelters for sheep. They're really not buildings as such, and the only building that is relevant as far as lot coverage is concerned is the structure up on the northeast corner, the 1-story wood-sided building. The bottom line is that insofar as those shelters are concerned, whatever needs to be removed to deal with those shelters will be addressed. There's not an issue, in short, with respect to any accessory buildings. They can be addressed. Dealing with the more important issue, and that is dealing with the lot size, I have put in front of you 3 handout. I direct your attention to the handout. And if you look at the left-hand corner, you'll see them numbered 1, 2, and the larger plan. If I can take you first to item number 1, what I wanted to show here is the extent of the Provo Farms operations operating under the umbrella of Ambrosia Farms. You will see that they own the majority of all the property that's east of the subject property. And if you review the property carefully, you can see how heavily wooded the area is. Mr. Provo will give you evidence as to why he is simply not interested in acquiring the 2 additional acres or 3 acres that would make the property of a smaller size. Note as well that there is the Nagy property, which was approved at 4.02 acres. Once again, that was a unique property. Admittedly, it was approved some years ago, but it's a high elevated area where you simply cannot get any kind of farm machinery up there to farm that. So if you review, you can see the actual properties owned under the umbrella of this farming operation. And clearly, they would like to obtain that 55 acres as an enhancement to their existing property. They have no use for that 5 acres, and frankly, if we're forced to take that 5 acres, it's a deal breaker. The deal just won't go. On the good side, what I can indicate to the committee, my clients are prepared. As you are aware, if this severance was approved, the remnant parcel would be rezoned to preclude construction of a residence on there. We're prepared to hook up the severed parcel with the parcel to the east, thereby creating a completed parcel of in excess of 100 acres. So what we're hoping we can convince the committee is we're going to go from 3 parcels, one at 50 acres, another one at 50 acres, and one at 5 acres. We end up with 2 parcels, one of 5 acres and one of 100 acres. And we're all aware that 100 acres is the minimum size that's considered for purposes in Norfolk County. That configuration is set out if you go into map number 2. We deal with the specific layout of how the property is encumbered and the acreage. You will see that the total area that only has any potential, if it does, for cultivation is the 1.5 acres and the 2.16 acres. Mr. Prevost, as I indicated, will give you an indication of his farming operation, why this acreage is not suitable for his farming operation. And the last handout I have is the larger map, which indicates the existing use of that property. Mr. Mason, the current owner of the property, has some sheep, more of a hobby type farm operation. And those, you'll notice the farm is completely fenced, and the sheep rotate amongst the various fields that he's established. And as I indicated to you, the one-story garage, or the one-story woodshed building is really the only permanent structure that has a building permit requirement. The wood building on the other side was a double-car garage. One side's been removed to provide a sheep shelter. But as I've indicated to you, the sheep shelters will be modified such that we conform with any zoning requirements. You'll note as well that the areas are spread out. The septic tile bed is quite a ways from the house. The well is quite a way from the house, and the underground hydro where it comes in. So it's just an undertaking that can't be undertaken if all that infrastructure has to be changed to accommodate a 1 acre lot. So if I may call on Mr. Provost now, and he'll describe his operation for you. Go ahead,
Thank you, Tom. Members of the Committee of Adjustment. Is it? You all? Okay. All right. Thank you. Tom advised us prior to us submitting our agreement of purchase of sale that to the Mason property that the Committee of Adjustment would be reluctant to approve the severance on surplus dwellings when the area of the lot is in excess of 1 acre. As a farmer, and in most instances, this makes sense. However, there are exceptions, and in this instance, I would ask the committee to consider allowing what we are proposing. My wife and I, in conjunction with other family members, operate a farm business under the umbrella of Ambrosia Produce. We currently farm 450 tillable acres. We employ 15 full-time employees with an additional 10 employees we hire during the harvest seasons. At the moment, we currently grow 120 acres of sweet potatoes and 130 acres of mini creamer potatoes, which is a new crop for us, and the balance of our land is grain crops. The 55 acres we propose to purchase from the Mason property would be a distinct enhancement to our existing land holdings given its placement in relationship to our other land holdings. Tom has taken you through the configuration of the Mason property and detailed the land suitable for inclusion in our farming operation. What we are really talking about is whether approximately 2 acres ought to be retained by the Mason property or whether we can justify acquiring that acreage. To purchase same from our perspective is simply not a viable option considering the lay of the land. As noted, approximately 2.16 acres of available cultivation to the west of the property, and there's a proposed lot of 1.5 acres on the east side, so it's very small blocks that we could actually farm if we were to farm it. And in our operation, we don't put any fields in that are at least 5 acres in size due to the efficiencies, and for reasons I will explain. For us to put irrigation into a 2.16 acre section or a 1.5 or 85 acre section is very expensive and it's not viable. To crop that acreage, it would require us to complete appropriate paperwork for various government institutions and to monitor the requirements for food safety, for crop maintenance logs and spray logs, and etc. In short, it requires the same level of management to put in 2.16 acres as it is to say we put in a 20-acre field. So there's a lot of paperwork that's involved for every plot that we put in, and to do a 1 acre or 2 acre plot is just, it's not, there's so much management involved, it's not worth it. And also, and if we were to farm those little plots, the equipment that we own that we currently use is too large. We could get in there, but we couldn't turn. And so if we were to farm this, we would have to buy smaller equipment to run this 3 acres or whatever it might be. And in retrospect, it's not viable to buy smaller equipment when we already have equipment that can do the job. So we respectfully request your support on this matter. Thank you.
Does the committee have any? Adam?
This information that that the committee has received today, did staff have this information before now, and like, did this factor into the decision? Your recommendation, not the decision, your recommendation?
Through the chair, through conversations with Mr. Klein, we were aware that the back portion of the Mason property was eventually to go to Mr. Provoke. So we were aware of his farming operation and that he was purchasing the back piece of.
So you had this and made your recommendation, even though this, what we've just heard, was part of your decision as well?
Through the chair, that is correct. We didn't see it as drawings, but we had had conversations with Mr. Klein and knew that the farming operation was in the area.
Thank you very much.
So just to be clear, sir, you're purchasing the 55-acre parcel, and included in that is the 5-acre, but you're not interested in that piece.
That's correct.
So that those two properties are owned by the same owner currently.
That's correct.
Mr. Provo has an agreement of purchase and sale, subject to committee's approval, purchase the 50-acre parcel. That's why he's bringing the application to the committee under his agreement of purchase and sale. Quite correct.
Okay, Dennis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Provo or Mr. Klein. As was ascertained, that the ownership of the two pieces is under one title. And what's the back piece, the larger piece, currently used for? Sheep were mentioned, and my impression is they're confined to the smaller portion.
On the front half of the back,
What's going on at the back?
currently we rent it right now, and we grow potatoes at the moment.
Yep.
Crop in there at the present time.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee?
If I just may sum up before the committee gets into its deliberation, key here, in my view, is that yes, fully recognize policy states for wanting to lot. Trade-off is, in my view, the fact that creating agriculture area that bigger for any residential development, 100 acres.
Any other questions or comments? Well, Rudy?
I just want to follow up on Mr. Klein's last comment. So that current property that's owned by Ambrosia, that would be entitled to have a building lot on there now, the way it stands? Or
No. That property immediately to the east is, because of the severance of 4.5 acres, it's frozen. And River Care frees up the 50 acres with that. Create in excess of 100 acre parcel, none of which would be subject to any residential plan.
So just to follow up, so you're referring then to that 55 acres that's
Correct.
currently owned by the Masons? But the way that land is right now, it wouldn't be really possible to build a house on that land, would it? On that piece of property?
55 acres?
Yeah.
Oh, no, because there's an existing house.
No, I understand.
Yeah, you can't build it.
I guess if I might, Madam Chairman, just a question to the planners. Is there any lot configuration that would be acceptable to them? I recognize that 5.5 acres is the reason why planning staff are not recommending approval. But this is kind of a unique property, so I'm just suggesting, is there any configuration that staff would say, yeah, we would be okay with that?
Through the chair, we haven't measured anything out, but it certainly appears that there is a much more suitable configuration there that would be more appropriate for the residential use and still provide appropriate services.
Well, just for the committee, I kind of sympathize and understand planning's position, but giving the property configuration and the fact that it's surrounded by the wooded area, I believe that the 5 acres could be at some point in the future a viable farm operation. Current owners do have sheep there, so reluctantly, but I probably would be prepared to support this.
If I might, Madam Chair, to staff, through you, if, looking down the road, if committee in its wisdom decides to grant the request of the applicant, in the future, could that severed lot then be divided to 2 lots, 3 lots?
Through the chair, there's not currently a situation where that would be possible.
Okay, thank you. So it'd become one large estate lot.
Marcel?
Madam Chairman, I can't see any feasible way that you could, make this smaller and have that other land as of some use to anybody. Maybe at some point in time, if we grant this severance, that maybe they want to get it rezoned and make it a small farm, maybe they could do that at a different time. But I would be prepared to accept this proposal.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Any other questions?
Just a comment, if I might, Madam Chair, before we go to getting a seconder and taking a vote at some point. Looking at the physical layout of the property, the hazard line and the tree line, and the question that was posed by Member Stickle is there anything that could be manipulated and massaged to make this a lot smaller? And hearing the comments from Mr. Proctor, sorry, I personally don't see how you could retain any portion of that to the main acreage that's beyond the tree line and viably farm it. I don't. The current use with sheep on it, that's probably as great as it's going to get. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak about the application? So I need to get a motion from the committee. Okay, Marcel? Okay. So the subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2014 and does conform to the consent policies of the Norfolk County official plan. Oh, sorry, I'm out of order here. So it's moved by Marcel. I need a seconder. Okay, Rudy?
I would second that motion, Madam Chair, and the reason I would second it is based on some of the other comments and my belief too that this is a unique property. Unfortunately, the size is an issue from a planning perspective, but from a realistic and physical perspective, I don't see where it would be viable to take any portion off that and make it realistic in terms of cropping. So I would second that motion.
Thank you. Okay, Dennis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I too will support the motion that's on the floor for the reasons as already stated. Excuse me, but making sure that everyone understands that this is, in fact, a unique situation, given the geography that's there. I'm not going to go on the record and say I'm going to approve 5-acre building lots in the agricultural area. That's just not what I'm doing tonight. I look at the map, I look at the comments that were made, I hear Mr. Progo say certain things and Mr. Klein say certain things, and I have to agree with the motion to approve it.
Thank you. Okay. So we have the motion on the floor to approve. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2014 and does conform to the consent policies of the Norfolk County official plan, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? The next one, Sherry, I'm going to do this together or separately? Separately. Okay. The next application is for a severance. The file number is BNPL 2019188, and the applicant's name is Robert Kirsten. Is the applicant or an agent present? Thank you.
And I have no objection if you want to deal with those two together. They're side by side. Maybe save you some time. Planning staff has no issue with that.
I've checked with staff, and I think we're going to do them separately. Okay? So I'll ask the planner to give his report.
Thank you. This is a severance application to create a new residential building lot in the hamlet of Langton. The subject lands are 0.45 hectares in size and frontage to the north side of 12 Concession Road. The lands are currently vacant, part of a larger farm parcel. The surrounding land uses are primarily agricultural to north and east, with residential uses and commercial uses to the south and west. The official plan allows for 2 severed lots to be created through consent in areas without full municipal services, so long as future development opportunities are not lost on the retained parcel. The lands are designated for hamlet uses, and the front portion of the lands is zoned hamlet residential. The rear portion is zoned agricultural, and a special condition of approval is that a zoning bylaw amendment application be approved to rezone the entire severed lot as hamlet residential. The subject application is consistent with provincial policy statement and conforms to the official plan consent policies. Staff recommend this application be approved, subject to the attached conditions.
Okay. Does the committee have any questions for the planner? Dennis?
Just confirmation for anyone else who might wonder that these properties are within the boundary of the hamlet of Langton.
Through the chair, that's correct, and you'll see the hamlet boundary on map 2 of the report.
Any other questions? Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Klein? Okay. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay. Can I have a mover for approval?
I'll move approval.
And a seconder? Lisa? The application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and conforms to the consent policies of Norfolk County Official Plan, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, the next application is file number BNPL 2019189, and the applicant is Robert Kirsten. And we have the agent here, Mr. Klein, and I'll ask the planner to give his report.
Thank you. This is a severance application to create a new residential building lot in Langton, and the subject lands are 0.4 hectares in size and front onto the north side of 12 Concession Road and are currently vacant. The lands are designated for Hamlet uses, and the front portion is zoned Hamlet residential with the rear portion being zoned agricultural. A special condition of approval is that the rear portion be rezoned for Hamlet residential uses. The subject application is consistent with provincial policies and conforms to the Norfolk County Official Plan consent policies. Staff recommend this application be approved, subject to the attached conditions.
Okay, any questions for the planner? Any questions for Mr. Klein? Is there anyone present that wishes to speak on this application? Okay. I have a mover. Dennis. And a seconder. Adam. Okay. The application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and conforms to the consent policies of the Norfolk County Official Plan, and no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Thank you for noticing. Actually, it's a little higher. There. Okay, the next application is for a severance. File number is BNPL 2019215. The applicant is Burning Kiln Winery. And I see there's an agent present. Could you please state your name for the committee?
Mary Elder is agent, and I also have with me representatives of the winery, Karen Matthews and Todd Saunders.
Okay, thank you. And I will ask the planner to give its report.
This is an application for a boundary adjustment. The subject lands are 15.9 acres in size and front onto the northwest side of Front Road in the former geographic township of Charlotteville. The lands contain a driveway, parking area, irrigation pond, and a grape vineyard. The purpose of this application is to merge the lands containing the vineyard and the public entrance for Burning Kiln with the winery property. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the intent of the official plan. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved, subject to the attached conditions.
Okay, does the committee have any questions for the planner? No questions? Any questions for the agent? Okay, is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? I see nobody. Okay. Can I have a mover? Okay, Ruby. And a seconder, Marcel. The subject application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and conforms to the intent of the Norfolk County Official Plan regarding boundary adjustments in the agricultural designation, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor of approval? Okay. Next application is file number BNPL 2019190. The applicant is Van Meer Farms, Inc., care of Greg Vermeesh. Is there an agent or applicant present? Okay, Mr. Rowe. And I'll have the planner give the report, please.
This is an application as a surplus farm dwelling severance. The subject lands are 0.9 acres and front onto Fairground Road. The subject lands were subject to a farm split previously approved by the Committee of Adjustment. A single detached dwelling and a greenhouse are on the subject lands. The greenhouse is proposed to be removed. Dwelling will be removed as a permitted use on the retained lands. The subject lands are an appropriate size for the intended use and appropriate services. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved subject to the attached conditions as is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the Norfolk County official plan regarding agricultural lot creation policies.
Any questions for the planner? Dennis?
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Chair, to the planner. Looking at the map, I see one driveway going into the farm property, and it's intended to be within the severed lands. And I don't see it under the conditions that the separate driveway is required.
Through the chair, the condition for a separate entrance comes through our development engineering team, and they didn't require it in this instance. There would need to be an entrance permit for the retained lands, so it's likely somewhere.
Okay.
Through the chair, sorry, I looked into it more. It's because the buildings are proposed to be removed, so when there's no buildings on the retained land, then there's no requirement for an entrance permit.
Okay. Any other questions for the planner? And any questions for the agent? Okay. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? No? Okay, can I have a mover for approval? Adam? And a seconder, Lisa? The subject application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and the Norfolk County Official Plan regarding surplus farm dwelling severances, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? It's approved. The next application is for a minor variance. The application number is ANPL 2019183, and the applicant is Greenville Homes, Inc. Is there an applicant or agent present? Agent, could you please state your name for the committee?
Bob Phillips from J.H. Cahoon Engineering Limited.
Thank you. And I will have the planner give the report.
This is an application requesting relief from the minimum lot frontage. The subject lands are 1 acre in size and front onto the west side of Head Street in the urban area of Simcoe. The lands are currently vacant and were created through a one-block plan of subdivision in 2018. The purpose of this application is to permit the construction of 18 townhouse units requiring relief from the minimum frontage, and they will be separated through future part lot control applications after they are constructed. Public input was received after the report was written, but it mainly dealt with the type of building on the property and the sidewalk, so it wasn't related to the relief that's being requested. The proposed development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Dennis?
Just a point of clarification for anyone who's here wants to speak on this agenda. We're talking about simply relief of a setback. We're not talking about driveways, landscaping.
Through the chair, it's relief of the minimum lot frontage per unit. That's it.
Thank you. Any other questions for planning staff? Any questions for the agent? Okay. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay, I don't see anyone here. And can I have a mover for approval? Ellen? And a seconder? Rudy? In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the proposed development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All in favor? The next application is file number BNPL 2019184, and the applicant is Jeffrey Dishmaker. Is there an applicant or agent present? Okay. I'll have the planner give the report.
This is an application for a boundary adjustment. The subject lands are 3.5 acres in size and front onto the west side of Wyndham Road 19 in the hamlet of La Salette. The lands are a vacant former rail line with a single detached dwelling under construction on the retained lands. The purpose of the subject application is to add the severed lands to an adjacent future residential parcel to be maintained as vacant open space. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the intent of the official plan. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? And does the committee have any questions for the applicant? No? And is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay. See anybody? Can I have a mover for approval? Dennis? And a seconder? The subject application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and conforms to the Norfolk County Official Plan regarding boundary adjustments, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, the next application is file number BNPL 2019186. The applicant is Court Farms Ontario, Inc. Is there an applicant or agent present? Okay. And I will now ask the planner to give the report.
Thank you. This is an application to sever a parcel made surplus through farm amalgamation. The subject lands are 4,300 square meters in size, or 1.06 acres, and front onto the south side of Colonel Talbot Road in the geographic township of Middleton. The subject lands contain a single detached dwelling and a well. The retained lands are primarily agricultural and contain a barn and 2 kilns. The proposed lot does not remove any active agricultural land from production. The retained lands will be rezoned to remove a single detached dwelling as a permitted use. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the Norfolk County Official Plan regarding surplus farm dwelling severances. Staff support this application and recommend it be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Okay, does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Committee have any questions for the applicant? No? Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? No? Okay, can I have a mover for approval? Alan. And a seconder? Dennis. All in favor? Oh, no, wait a minute. Gotta read the reason. Getting ahead of myself. The subject application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and the Norfolk County Official Plan regarding surplus farm dwelling severances, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? Carried. Next application is ANPL 2019-192. The applicant is Brian Ola and Brenda Edwards. Is there an applicant or agent present? Okay, thank you. And I will now ask the planner to give the report.
This is a minor variance application on Kenneth Avenue in the Vaughan Survey lands. The application is proposing to remove an existing dwelling and rebuild on the subject lands. Relief from the minimum required exterior side yard setback is required for the proposed building. The requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. Planning staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Okay. Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Does the committee have any questions for the applicant? Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay. Do I have a mover for approval? And a seconder? Adam? Okay. In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the proposed development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. And no public input was received, and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? The next application is file number BNPL 2019-198. The applicant is Ryan and Carrie Kitchler. Is there an applicant or agent present? No. All right. I will ask the planner to give the report.
This is an application to sever a parcel made surplus through farm amalgamation. The subject lands are 4,176 square meters in size, or 1.03 acres, in front onto the east side of Hillcrest Road in the geographic township of Woodhouse. The subject lands contain a single detached dwelling and a garage. The retained lands are primarily agricultural and contain 3 greenhouses and a barn. The surrounding land uses are primarily agricultural in nature. This retained lands will be automatically rezoned to remove a single detached dwelling as a permitted use. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the Norfolk County official plan regarding surplus farm dwelling severances. Staff support this application and recommend it be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for the planner? No. And does the committee have any questions for the applicant? Not here. Okay. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding the application? Mover for approval, Lisa. And a seconder. Okay, the subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2014 and the Norfolk County official plan regarding surplus farm dwelling severances, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? The next application is ANPL 2019-200. Earl and Helen Brown are the applicants. Is there an applicant or agent present? Thank you. And I will ask the planner to give the report.
This is an application under Section 45(2) of the Planning Act to expand a legal non-conforming use on New Lakeshore Road. The applicants are proposing to construct a deck and a sunroom that will be on the existing deck footprint. However, the existing deck was built without building permits, so this will clean up the situation and lead to a new deck. The subject lands are part of LPRCA's regulated lands, and the applicants are aware that a permit is required from LPRCA prior to construction. Planning staff support this application as an appropriate expansion of the existing legal non-conforming use and recommend that it be approved.
Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Committee have any questions for the applicant? No? Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay. Can I have a motion for approval? Adam? And a seconder? Adam? The application is consistent with Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and conforms to the consent policies of Norfolk County Official Plan, and that, nope, whoops, I'm reading the wrong one, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. In accordance with Section 45(2) of the Planning Act, the proposed development is considered an expansion to a legal nonconforming use and appropriate in this instance, with approval from the Long Point Region Conservation Authority, and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All in favor? That's approved. All right. The next application is file number BNPL 2019201. The applicant is Ian and Susie Anderson. Is there an applicant or agent present? Okay. Have the planner give the report.
To the chair, I'll be presenting these two applications together,
Okay.
201 and 202. So these are two severance applications to create two residential building lots within the urban area of Port Rowan. The subject lands are each 4,000 square meters in size and front onto the north side of Woolman Street near East Quarter Line. The lands are currently vacant and part of a larger 2.77 hectare undeveloped parcel. The surrounding land uses consist of single detached dwellings to the north, or to the south and west, and undeveloped agricultural lands to the north and east. Residential property sizes in this area generally range between 0.16 hectares and 0.44 hectares, and no municipal wastewater infrastructure exists in the neighborhood, and development is on private on-site sewage disposal systems. The official plan allows for two severed lots to be created through consent in areas without full municipal services, so long as future development opportunities are not lost on the retained parcel. The lands are designated urban residential in the official plan and zone development. A condition of the approval is for a zoning bylaw amendment to be approved to change the zoning on the subject lands for residential use and to place a holding provision on the large retained lands until a comprehensive development plan has come forward. The subject application is consistent with provincial policy statement and conforms to the Norfolk County official plan. Staff recommend this application be approved subject to the attached conditions.
Okay, does the committee have any question for the planning staff? Any questions for the applicant or agent? And is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Yes?
I just would like to ask, with those two lots, we represent the owners of, one of the adjacent lots, and wouldn't it be better to have a overall plan for that whole area between that Quarterline Road towards the town of Port Rowan? So if you look, those two lots are proposed, and then you have two sections, it's about 70 acres, I think, in total. And I couldn't exactly follow the conditions that were mentioned earlier, but wouldn't it be better to have a development plan for the whole section before it's all carved up?
Actually, just before he answers, I'm going to ask you to state your name, please.
My name is Jeremias de Klerk. It's D-E-K-L-E-R-K.
Thank you.
Through the chair, in response, a condition is for holding provision on the retained piece of lands, which would be about 5.5 to 6 acres, which would be for future development down the road. So there certainly could be an opportunity if property amalgamation were to happen with the two pieces to the west. But at this time, given the fact that there are no municipal wastewater services, these properties are an appropriate size for those systems and allows for some development of the property before a full comprehensive plan has come forward.
Thank you. Does the committee have any further questions for the planning staff? Dennis?
To staff through you, Madam Chair, approximately where does the municipal wastewater dead end?
Through the chair, in response, the current municipal wastewater line dead ends approximately 800 meters to the west on Woolman Street. So it's not even adjacent to these severed pieces.
Does the committee have any other questions? Dennis?
One more through you, Madam Chair. So if the owner of this property and any other properties in that immediate area come forward with a plan of subdivision at some point, would they be responsible for extending the services to the property?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'll deal with both of these at the same time. Could I have someone move for approval? Adam? And seconder? The application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014 and conforms to the consent policies of the Norfolk County Official Plan, and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of the application. All in favor? The next application is ANPL 2019203. The applicant is Baz Drywall Inc., care of Joe's Baz. And is there an applicant or agent present? Thank you. And I will ask the planner to give their report.
This is a minor variance application to construct a two-story detached garage, require relief from the zoning bylaw provisions to allow a maximum height of 7.62 meters, a lot coverage of 13.9%, and a usable floor area of 253.2 square meters for all accessory buildings on the property. The subject lands are 1,817 square meters in size and front onto the north side of concession 13 Townsend, east of Cockshut Road. The lands currently contain a single detached dwelling and 2 storage sheds. An addition on the rear of the dwelling is under construction at this time. The subject lands are in a primarily agricultural area and part of a cluster of 5 homes at the intersection of Concession 13 and Cockshut. The lands are immediately adjacent to residential parcels to the west and north, and a boundary adjustment from the adjacent property to the north in 2017 increased the lot area of the subject lands. The proposed development is considered appropriate as it is an accessory storage building to a permitted residential use in the agricultural zone. The request for relief from the applicable zoning bylaw provisions is considered minor in nature, and no public input in opposition of this application was received. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the Norfolk County Official Plan, and maintains the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Staff recommend this application be approved.
Thank you. And does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Any questions for the agent or applicant? Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay. Can I have a mover for approval? Marcel. And a seconder, Lisa. In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? Next application is ANPL 2019205. The applicant is Mark and Melissa Culver. Is there an applicant or agent present? Applicant, thank you. Okay, and I'll ask planning staff to give their report.
This is a minor variance application to construct a 2-story addition onto an existing detached garage, requiring relief from the zoning provisions to allow a maximum height of 7 meters and a maximum usable floor area of 243 square meters. The subject lands are 0.7 hectares in size and front onto the north side of Concession 3 Townsend, east of Old Highway 24 in the hamlet of Wilsonville. The The lands contain a single detached dwelling, a detached garage, and a storage shed. Surrounding land uses are hamlet residential in nature, consisting of single detached dwellings situated on larger lots. While the requested relief may seem significant in value, it is considered minor and appropriate in this instance. The existing detached garage exceeds 100 square meters, and adding a second level and an addition at the rear is not anticipated to negatively impact the neighboring property owners because the existing accessory structure has been located in this spot for many years. The structure is located near the middle of the property, and its significant separation distance from neighbors on either side assists with mitigating any impacts from a slightly taller storage building. The lot slopes down behind the garage, and the new footprint is located entirely behind the existing structure. The garage is set back from the road and well screened by vegetation, both along the frontage and the east property line. The proposed development and request for relief are considered minor in nature and appropriate in this instance. The subject application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the official plan, and maintains the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Staff recommend the application be approved.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? And any questions of the applicant? Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay, and can I have someone move for approval? Seconder, Dennis. Okay, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. No public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? Next application is ANPL 2019-207. The applicant is Tyler Clarkson and Jennifer Smith. Is there an applicant or agent present? Okay, thank you. And I will now ask the planner to give the report.
This is a minor variance application on Woodley Road. The application is seeking relief of minimum distance separation from a neighboring livestock operation. A new dwelling is being proposed in between two existing rural residential properties. The proposal is to build a dwelling in between and maintain a similar streetscape while also aiming to reduce the disruption of the farmland behind. The farmer who owns the adjacent livestock operation has written a letter of support that was included in the application package. The requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. Planning staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Dennis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to staff. When we're talking about separation distances, that residence that's immediately across the road, can we assume that there was in the past some reduction in the separation distances, or is this going to bolus apply in this case?
Through the chair, the existing dwelling, we have no record of a minor variance to address that. It's a situation very likely that just predated the current standards for minimum distance separation, so it's an existing use.
Any other questions? And does the committee have any questions for the applicant? No. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay, and could I have a mover for approval? Ready? And a seconder? In accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the proposed development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All in favor? The next application is ANPL 2019-214. The applicant is Chad and Lynette Horton. I see Mike Ross, agent, okay. And I will now ask the planner to give the report.
This is a minor variance application on Pine Road West in Long Point, seeking relief from the boathouse height and the floor area, as well as relief of height and lot coverage for the cottage. A terms of reference for an environmental impact study for the boathouse was in front of NEAC, the Norfolk Environmental Advisory Committee, and they elected to proceed without completing the full EIS in this case. Permits will be required from LPRCA as this is regulated lands. The requested relief can be considered minor in nature, appropriate development, and generally meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. Planning staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Does the committee have any questions for planning staff? Okay, Marcel?
So we're talking about the lot coverage to 25% from 50.5. So will the applicant have to give lot when he builds a new cottage?
Through the chair, this application is combining the application for the relief from the boathouse and for the cottage all in one. So this would permit up to 25% lot coverage for a proposed cottage.
Thank you. Any other questions for planning staff? And any questions for the agent? Okay. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? Okay. I have someone move for approval. So. And a seconder. Lisa. In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? Okay, the next application is ANPL 2019-216, and the applicant is Jane Ann McLean. Is there an applicant or agent present? No. Okay, I will ask the planner to give the report.
The applicant is requesting to construct a boathouse requiring relief of 1.1 meters from the maximum permitted building height of 5 meters to allow 6.1 meters. The applicant is also requesting relief of 60.8 square meters from the maximum usable floor area of 56 meters to allow usable floor area of 116.8 square meters. The subject lands are located on the east side of Howie Avenue in the resort area of Long Point. The lands are designated resort residential in the official plan and are also zoned resort residential in the zoning bylaw. The surrounding lands are primarily residential in nature, with several properties also containing boathouses. No negative impacts to surrounding lands are anticipated. The application is considered minor in nature, consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the official plan, and maintains the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Planning staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Does the committee have any questions of planning staff? No? And I didn't see that an applicant was present or an agent, so no questions for them. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak regarding this application? No? Okay. Can I have someone move for approval? Okay, Adam. And a seconder? In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the development and requested relief is considered appropriate development, minor in nature, and it maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor? other business the committee would like to discuss? Dennis?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And again, going through the applications before us this evening, I noticed again, we had a minimum of 3 of them, if not 4, that were within the 1 meter or slightly above the 1 meter request for relief from the height of buildings. And I just wanted to make sure that going forward into September, October, whatever period of time we're targeting, that we have that presentation prepared, requesting council to review the zoning bylaw in that regard.
Okay, and I'll just ask staff to give an update on the status of that.
My understanding, sorry, I haven't been involved really, but I've heard about it. I thought that the chair yourself was going to speak to council to give us direction to do that. Because we need direction from someone to start that kind of project.
Okay.
Yeah.
We asked staff to prepare a report to council.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I haven't seen that, so.
Yeah, it was,
Madam Chair?
in,
The intent of the motion that I did put forward was to have staff prepare the data that we need, and then a presentation from this committee, the chair particularly, to make that request of council to review the zoning bylaw in this regard.
okay,
The intent, again, is to relieve busy staff from some of these applications, get them out of the system so that people don't have to pay the money and go through the whole process for those minor reliefs. We have to visit all these sites, all 7 of us. So all the way down the line, there's going to be some savings in time, effort, and cost.
okay. All right, then I have my marching orders. I guess I will set up a meeting with staff and we will update the statistics, and I will get a deputation requested to council. Okay. Presentation it is. Okay. Any other business? No? Oh.
So I'm just filling in